Hey, hello.
Hello. Hi, Angelique. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Good morning for me.
Hi.
Good
Well,
afternoon for
good
you.
afternoon. Yeah.
Good evening
Okay.
for
Little.
our LinkedIn Live viewers or people watching the replay. Welcome, welcome. So today we are talking about busting the myth of productivity. So we are Angelique and Trevor from Hello Monday Club, and every week we go live. We're talking about the future of work, new ways of working, and everything that is happening in this like global workplace transformation that we're in. So we do this on a weekly basis. We address topics that are either relevant or that caught our interest, or we also answer questions from viewers. So if you have a question or a topic that you are wondering about, just send it to us, put it in the comments, and we'll get back to it. So welcome again. Say hi. Say something in the comments where you're from, where you're watching from. Um, yes, busting the myth of productivity. We had a few things popping up recently um,
Yeah.
that were, yeah, it was relevant in the sense we see people stepping up, saying, well, basically this. um,
Yeah. Yeah. Our friend Lord Sugar, who's done the rounds a lot in the last couple of weeks. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, not. But just want to address this because we all know a Lord Sugar, and I cannot get this
Yeah.
Lord yet out of my head that I just said accidentally 2 weeks ago. But we know a Lord Sugar. It could be our uncle that is on a birthday. It could be, somebody in our management team, or it could be somebody, on the accountancy, on the accountant department. But we have
Yeah.
people saying that, and we might even, if we listen really carefully and we are very, very honest with ourselves, we might have this voice inside ourselves because we have been programmed um, in this mindset that is an industrial mindset, and
Yeah.
that is very, very deeply related to our values, the values that we were brought up in many cases as well. So this is in a way imprinted and be rationalizing and look at new ways of working and what productivity is, but the mindset around it needs to change, and we are in that transformation. So we have traces of this thinking in ourselves, and for some people like Lord Sugar, it's very outspoken and very, there's no doubt in my mind that this is how I think about it. For many of us, it might be more mixed. um, so I just want to say, like, so what is productivity? Because this is basically where Lord Sugar is referring to. So he
Yeah.
used the word lazy, which is a very value driven remark. So the lazy kids make me sick. This goes against his core value of working hard.
Yeah.
Call me old fashioned. So he is addressing to the old fashioned way of working. He's like saying, okay, I am still in that mindset. There's no way people work as hard. So it's about hard work and be productive as when they had to turn up at a work location. So working hard is what you do at a certain place. And these are very industrial ways of thinking. You go to a factory where you work hard, um, and you are productive. And so this
Yeah.
is the whole mindset context, and just analyzing this for a bit, just to give us that idea. um, I don't like to say a lot about, these people are dinosaurs, they have to make space, because we are in transformation and everybody does transforms in their own pace. um, it might be problematic if those people in positions of company wanting to move forward to implement new ways of working, and we have people blocking because of mindset issues, because everybody's in
Yeah.
different mindsets. It's very hard to align your management team and to go into that, to say, okay, this is where we'll be heading to, and this is going to be the implementation. And even if you get the alignment, then in the process of change, you will, the mindset differences will keep popping up. And what I want to say again, because I know a lot of people are talking about, we have the business case and we know it's better and there is proof and they want it. And all those, the business case can be as strong as you know, if you could show, proof that it makes, it's going to make you more millions. But if the mindset doesn't change, the organization in the end will not change because it's so intrinsically is in our system. So
Yeah.
what is your experience with that, Trevor?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking back to the session that we ran a little while ago about how to influence in HR. And we talked about connecting with the values of other people and how important that was almost before you start to work on the rational side of things. You start to connect with the other people. And if you take that sentence about they don't work as hard and they're not as productive as they were before they are when they're in a location. If you break that up, there's a great opportunity to connect. So work as hard, actually, that probably, if we're really honest, that probably is true. We may not work as hard. I mean, some people definitely are working hard and harder and working longer hours and that kind of stuff. And actually, that's kind of not what we're talking about today. But the bit where he says that they're not as productive, you can meet him there. Because actually, if you've got a common goal of productivity, we know, as you say, we then move on to the business case, that the productivity has virtually every single study has shown productivity is increased when you're working from home, particularly overall when more flexible working options are provided. So that's a place where there's an overlap in the Venn diagram, that actually if we take more progressive policies and then we say productivity is king, which I don't agree with, but let's say productivity is king, there is a common language there. And I think that's the starting point. And it's still hard to have the conversation. It doesn't make it easy, at least in my experience, but it's probably your best starting point.
Yeah, and then we can say what is productivity and what is it in that in the different mindsets. And this is obviously something that a lot of people are familiar with, or at least come across this kind of comparisons, and we have been talking about in the world of work for many years. But connecting that to that mindset, it might give a little bit more clarity. So if you that industrial mindsets, and this is a very important thing, that when the industrial ages, this is where we had a power shift. So we started in the industrial time, we exchanged our labor and time in exchange for money. So we were doing physical labor a certain time slot, and in when we started to, with the rise of the knowledge workers, we got skills and experience that we're changing. And that was a power shift. And it was a major power shift that people think it's happening now because people say, I want to work from home. But that power shift started in the 60s. So when we started trading skills and experience, there was no longer that inequality that a manager could tell you what to do and they hold the knowledge, and that was withheld from the common workers. So now the knowledge worker, he has the skills and the experience, and the manager usually doesn't. It was also input driven, while we are now looking at results as a company productivity. And somebody said, and I really love that quote. Somebody said to me, yeah, but technology companies, they don't need time and people working and sitting behind a computer. They need brilliant ideas, and that's it. Just what is productivity? Is it somebody sitting behind a computer creating one PowerPoint presentation, Excel sheet after the other, and sending a lot of emails? Or is it somebody just come up with, I had this really great idea and I think it's going to make us a lot of money, and I had it when I was doing my morning run. So there is that sense of what is the actual productivity that we want to do. And there you can meet each other. So also the old mindset, get more work done in less time. That was, the aim of productivity increase in companies. Well, we should now look at get better results. So it was quantitative, and now we're moving to qualitative. And the managers need to, in the best case, motivate their employees to be more productive. In worst case, force them to be more productive. Well, with knowledge work, about empowering and making people thrive and making, giving that intrinsic motivation of people, giving their best at work. So that is also in that productivity mindset, there is a very, very different role for the manager. And looking back at this, um, it's really that industrial mindset that we bring to a workplace that needs something else, and there we have something that is like really, really, truly problematic. Um, so this is not that new, but if we look at productivity, we should always reflect also on ourselves, because we have that feeling, I have to send more emails, and if I do more, and then I'm an entrepreneur, so marketing and sales, you can always do more activities. And if we
Yeah.
go live every day, but would we get better results if we were actually going to do that? So there is a lot
Yeah.
to think about in that productivity mindset. And if you look at yourself, you might catch yourself jumping from a lot in that left side industrial mindset when you think about productivity. Do you do that? Like, what is your examples in management teams or in yourself, like in your own business?
Well, in myself, so I have quite a long day, and I don't mean that necessarily a long working day, but I have quite a long day. I get up at 5 o'clock. I've always done that. I'm not one of these, most recent advocates of the 5 a.m. club. It's always been my thing. And so some nights will be a bit later and that kind of thing. So I can get quite tired. And I know, because I've looked at the science, that the correct thing to do is to have a nap in the middle of the day. I know that 100% proven time and time again. I'll be better worker in the afternoon as a result of doing that. I'll be in a better mood. My family will be happier. Like, everything is better if I have a nap in the afternoon, because science has proven it. I really struggle to do that because I'm so entrenched this idea that there's this block in the middle of the day where I have to work. And not only that, when we look at our circadian rhythms, we know that everyone has an afternoon slump where they're not very productive at all. I mean, everyone's slightly different, but the vast majority of people have the afternoon slump. Perfect time to have a little sleep, wake up, be far more effective, more productive in the right-hand column sense of it. And yet I have got that entrenched feeling, that kind of internalized industrial mindset, that means that I really struggle not to have guilt around that. And it's super weird. And then, I just think of how we then pile that on, because managers then project that sense of guilt, that internalized industrial mindset, onto their teams, and it just carries on forever. And the irony, I thought, when you put those two columns up, was actually, if you want the stuff on the right, you kind of have to do less of the stuff on the left. And it's a real catch-22, because a lot of these really hard driving managers are effectively killing productivity. So, I mean, there's obviously a balance. You can't just everyone go on a holiday and phone in when you've got a brilliant idea. Stuff needs to be done. But that was my first thought, is like, do less of the stuff on the left-hand side if you want more of the stuff on the right. And then my other thought was that actually, when you start to really, yeah, exactly, they have got the right idea with their siestas. Exactly right.
Thank you, Lavina.
Always been true. It's always been true. Thank you, Lavina. So I just thought, that's a kind of a big challenge. And like most things, I think, particularly in the English language, but in lots of languages, our problem comes down to words. That two people could have a conversation about productivity and mean drastically different things. Yes. One of which is guaranteed to impact on the success of the business, and the other one may be only slightly correlated to the success of the business.
Yes. Yeah, and this is the mindset. So it's really interesting what you say, because we have that in ourselves, that sense of guilt, that sense like, I need to work. So my father was a truck driver, and he got up at 5 and he would come home at 7 in the evening, sometimes just really, really long days. And it was very much in the values of our family to work hard, get up early, which is problematic for me. I have a different biorhythm. But that kind of, the loyalty to your employer, working hard, staying there, like my father worked his whole life basically for the same company. And these things we got them from our parents. And it was very interesting. The management team, a small company, and they were like, well, we really want to go to this results only work environment where people can, work when they want, on their own times, flexible times. So this was even years ago. And the people kept on showing up at 8:30 or 8, even before that. Well, they were like, okay, we don't see people changing their behavior, and we really want that because we think they can they would thrive better if we, if they take that flexibility that we offer them. And then was like, well, but all like 22-year-old people that live with their parents, and this was especially in Netherlands, where those values of working hard, getting up early, going, showing up, making long days was very strong in that region. So, and I'm like, they're not going to show up at work at 10 because it feels better for them when their parents are going to say, they're going to be knocking on the bedroom door and say, hey, you have to get up, you have to go to work. So it's that deep internalized. And if we as freelancers have that internal struggle, then you can imagine it, put that in a company where the structures are, where you have collaboration, where there's like certain times that you work synchronously with others, and a lot of people come up with those values. And somebody once said to me, this is the terror of the morning people, that we have to show up at work at 8:30. He was like, he was waking up at noon, like in his natural biorhythm. And he was like, it's the terror of the morning people that they decide what time is the best working time.
Yeah.
And it's, I love Lavinia. I love your comments. So I wanted to invite other people. What do you think is a dominant mindset around productivity in your company, if you would look back at those two? But so what does productivity look like, or feel like, maybe even in when we are looking at that right end of the spectrum? So this is obviously in an environment of knowledge workers. I would say it's like, having productivity is getting the best ideas. It is collaboration and co-creation. I have a typo there. It's co-creating with others. It's being in flow. It's having focus. It's coming up with results, doing the right thing. We can be working very, very hard, but if it's just busy work and it's not the right thing, it's not productive. And the feeling that we make a difference. So, and then we come to a purpose in the company. So I want to invite people also to reflect on this, especially what does it look like, what does it feel, and bring that, go into that feeling for yourself. Imagine those moments when you felt this, and bring this back to your team and to your leadership table. Every time when we talk about working from home, we're talking about productivity. Bring that discussion about, okay, but what it looks like is what we should be people should be thriving, so we should be enabling them to work into flow, to have focus, to make sure that they are actually spending the time doing the right thing. So do you have any additions to this? I'm wondering if there are other keywords that you would use.
Well, no, I mean, I think this is a good summary, to be honest. And then I sort of encapsulate it all as kind of outcome. And you might just say, the outcome is a successful business. So that's true productivity. Is your business successful, if you like? But one of the other things that occurred to me is, you were saying like it's knowledge workers. When you look at those different mindsets, sort of industrial and then the outcome-driven mindset, no one company can purely do one, and no one job is purely one or the other. And my archetype for the sort of industrial mindset, which isn't actually that industrial as a job, is like a security guard. Because a lot of the time, security guards are just literally paid to be somewhere. Yes, they have got some skills and experience. That's what I mean by it's not just one or the other, but they're literally paid to be in a place. That's it. And be awake. That's kind of their job, right? And then paid to deal with stuff when it happens.
Sorry,
was that? Yeah,
Well, I have police in front of my door. And I literally,
of course.
24 hours at my doorstep. So I'm like better protected than, most.
You're like protected like the Queen, yeah.
And they are.
But I was going to say is like even.
So
because they're just supposed to be there. But even a job like that, even a security job, if they had an idea that would improve security, or if they had an idea that would improve the efficiency of them doing their patrols or something like that, that would be valued by an organization. So it's this kind of like, we also need to acknowledge the fact that there is no one definition of productivity that works for any organization. It's always the whole thing. Always the whole thing.
Yes. So, yes, I want to dive a little bit deeper in those concepts that have been around for a long time. So there is the slogan that has been used by many lifestyle entrepreneurs, a lot of people that left corporate jobs, that adapted to this work smart, not hard, or work smarter, not harder. And they're based on the 4-hour work week from Tim Ferriss, the 7-day weekend from Ricardo Sambler. There is a book that I really came across like years ago, The Results Only Work Environments. Those are very interesting concepts, and they have been around. I miss this in the mindset of a lot of organizations. This is not usually on the agenda to say maybe in agile work. It's probably the corporate. You know a little bit more about that than me, actually, with your L&D background. But what is like in the corporate world what is the corporate version of that work smart, not hard, and how does it play out, Trevor?
I mean, I hear that phrase in the corporate world. Like I have heard that quite a few times, work smart, not hard. But amazingly, like some of the people who've said it I've had managers say that to me, and I'm thinking, but I know your reputation. Your reputation is you drive your team really hard. So I don't know if that means that their version of work smart is they don't do the work their team does. But, I think it's become a bit twisted, I suppose, in the corporate environment to mean like, okay, I do want to come up with a clever idea, but a lot of the time that's just so that I don't have to employ as many people, or just so that I can kind of win the next contract and move on to the next thing. So I don't think it's been used particularly well. And I remember an organization that really was very proud of the fact that it did do smart work. And this one guy had worked in an IT team, and he'd been driven really, really hard. And he had dyslexia, and he had a couple of other learning difficulties, but was a very, very smart guy. And because it wasn't understood, there was a real issue with how his manager managed him. So he moved teams, and he went to a new team that was data entry. And he'd worked in a team where he'd done loads of automation. So he was meant to be doing this data entry one line at a time. And he spent like 2 days writing this program that could then do 1 million lines of data entry in about 1 minute. So he created this amazing macro that he could run, and it would do all this work. And he showed it to his boss, and he went, well, why have you done that? And he went, well, because it will, it makes everything more efficient. He went, but by the end of the week, you'll have done all the data entry, and then you'll need to write another macro. And he went, yeah, I know. And he goes, well, that's not your job. Your job is to enter data. And he just had this like completely, two conversations completely missing one another. And he came to me for coaching because he was like, well, what do I do? How on earth do I get around this fact that we're just talking a completely different language? And the reality is he was in the wrong team. So he moved again, and he was much happier when he moved. But, I think we're so entrenched most of the time. We've got so many layers of expectation around us within the corporate environment that I think a lot of the time that gets in the way of us really sitting back, a bit like how you opened this session, really sitting back and saying, what is productive? And then you've got another layer, which is you've got to communicate that to your team in a way that says, you've got this stuff that you need to do. You've got these tasks you need to check off and all that kind of stuff. But here is what it means to be productive for my team, our team, or here's what it means to be productive for this business, in my view. How can we work towards that and slowly move away from just ticking things off the list? And I think it takes a brave leader to throw that challenge and back their team up when they stop doing some stuff and start trying to create real impact. I think that's a real test of leadership right there.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is this is part of the mindset shift as well, to say, so I think this could be one of two questions that you could ask. What does productivity feel or look like for our, you can ask, everybody in the team can answer that. Everybody saying, okay, when do you feel productive? Like, just write down what is the day, and by the end of the day you felt really, really productive. And what are the outcomes?
That's a good one.
So if you say, what are the actual results? So, that could be, we want to launch a new product at, the end of this quarter. So if you take those two things together, then you take a really that just allows you, because you start focusing on that new mindset, and
Yeah.
moving away from the old mindset is basically the best way to do that is not to fight it and have that discussion, but you say, okay, let's focus on, productivity feels for me that, I've done my task. I feel I work very structured. I'm in a rhythm. I didn't get disturbed. I was in the flow. I wrote, I was in my creative mood. We co-created, with some people. We had a really good brainstorm session, and that led to this. Yeah, that is productivity. And then you just kind of move away from that whole time and present mindset input, because it doesn't really matter anymore how many hours it was. And
Yeah.
I think those two questions. So yeah, we should add that here. What does productivity feel, and what is the outcome we would like?
While you're doing that, I mean, in my experience, particularly in the corporate world, there are two big killers of productivity by our kind of definition, our sort of outcome-focused definition. One is meetings. Now, there is co-creation and collaboration as part of the definition. So I'm not saying you never meet, but the vast majority of meetings are not designed to create a new outcome. They're designed to manage anxieties and create control and, share information in a really inefficient way. So meetings are a big killer of productivity in most organizations. And that's been proven time and time again by various studies. And it seems to have only gotten worse the more people work from home, because people use meetings as an excuse for connection rather than purposefully connecting. And the other killer is reports. And I remember coaching one senior leader, and she'd moved from one division, did brilliantly in deploying a new compliance framework that had been rolled out nationally. And then she moved into a different team that was more around customer satisfaction. And she was just sort of going around talking to the team. And she spoke to about 5 or 6 members of an 8-person team. They're going, oh, I'm doing this for this report. I'm doing that for that report. And she was like, wow, this report must be really important. So who's this report for? And they went, well, it's for you. Why are you doing that report for me? Well, because the previous manager asked for it. And she probably had a full week of effort every single week spread out amongst the team, producing a report for her. And not only had she not asked for it, it was her predecessor, but no one had stopped to think that maybe they didn't have to do it anymore. And this was about 4 weeks in that she worked this out. So it was the end of the month, she got reports she didn't want, wasn't interested in, and she'd lost like a huge amount of productivity within her team just producing this report. And when you combine the two together, by the way, it's the worst thing possible. You've got a load of senior people getting together for a meeting that doesn't really have any impact, and a load of junior people preparing reports and packs for this meeting. It's almost viral the degree to which this can sabotage the productivity of your organization.
Yeah, there's a solution, is to create a not to-do list. And I think, like in the stand-up, in the weekly stand-ups that tech teams do a lot, is where you would just go over like what works, what will be keep on doing, and also they reflect on things that they should stop be doing because they're not effective or not contributing to the end results. Yeah, so there's a few other solutions. So yeah, meetings and reports. Yeah, I think it's really about also changing that mindset. Having a lot of meetings doesn't make you productive, although it might look like for some people. It's very important to employees and create that personal leadership and responsibility. And I'm referring that in the context of working from home, where it is about, or like away from the office, where because some people might struggle to find that productive flow and focus when they are working from home in an environment that might give them more distractions. So that is about personal leadership and responsibility. So if you go to the fridge all the time to eat cheese, then you might want to reflect on your personal leadership. And I think it's very interesting. It is about also that is energy management. Food is an energy management, and people are more in control when to do so when they're in their own home environment. Empower employees, create a personal leadership for their well-being, their energy management, their own working routines, and everything. And ask employees, managers, everybody should ask themselves and ask each other, where can I do my best work and when? Alternative solutions of working from home, because that is the context that is this productivity discussion takes place. co-working spaces or maybe the cafe around the corner. We can have that discussion. There are a lot of co-working spaces. You work from co-working spaces. I work from co-working spaces. And sometimes I work from the cafe around the corner. That might not be a solution for everybody, but you can have the discussion in the team and say, okay, for certain work, it's perfectly fine to sit around in a cafe around the corner and I'll create this PowerPoint presentation that is not that sensitive. I've seen people in planes creating PowerPoint presentations that I was looking at. I was like, I don't think I should see this numbers. So this is also responsibility. It's been happening many years. So, but we have to be aware of that. How do we decide on the results and performance? So that is the discussion, the questions that we could ask. How do we decide as a team or as a company what are good results and what is good performing in this new context? What does productivity mean for us and what is needed for us to be or feel more productive? So these are some questions that we can ask, we can bring back to our management team. Start at, of course, as we always do, we always work with the top layer management teams of companies because there is where they should be the change drivers. They do the mindset work first, and then they empower the employees to bring that mindset back to their employees and into a joint new vision around work and in this case productivity. Any additions?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, like, I think those first two work so well together, and empowerment can feel quite passive. Like, I've heard it trained quite passively, and I've heard people talk about it in quite a passive way, but it really works when it's paired with personal leadership and responsibility. Mm-hmm. I remember one of my proudest moments as a leader, it was when we were not quite first in lockdown, but in the early days of lockdown during the pandemic. So everyone was working from home, and it was difficult. And one of my team came up to me and said something along the lines of, I just need you to know I'm really struggling. I'm finding it really hard. I'm doing my best, but equally I need to look after myself. And I don't need you to do anything right now other than know about it. I think I can sort myself out. But if not, I just want to give you advance warning so that I can come back to you and kind of, ask for help and I've tried. And I felt super proud, like, that I'd set up a climate that someone felt they could come and do that. Basically, they were coming to me and saying, I'm not doing work. And then, also that as a team member, she felt that she had the capability to come up to me and go, this is my problem, and I'm sharing it with you because you should know, but I don't expect you to solve it. I'm telling you I'm going to solve it, and I'll come back to you if I need your help. And that kind of combination just works so well. It stops people getting involved in things they're not needed to get involved in, and allows people to feel like they've got choice and agency. And there's no better way of driving employee engagement, and we all know the impact of that, but it hits on every other part of that list because it all just becomes easier when people feel like they've genuinely got choice and they've got a voice as well.
Yeah, and if we even go back to this one, you see there is the empowerment, and it was actually one sentence, but I cut it, but it is to empower people in that place of personal leadership and responsibility. And very different than motivating and for. And here is where it starts. If you look in your top leadership skill, that mindset, if the hidden and the deep down, because we're so integrated with this idea that there's been so many management books about how to motivate employees. It is being the default mindset around what management is or should be. It's quite a challenge. I've seen managers struggle with that as well. When we were moving to kinds of results-driven, flexible working schemes in the Netherlands, when I was still an HR director, I got leaders, coming up into my office and say, "Well, I think this person should be in the office at 9 because," and then I would say, "Okay, what is actually what problem are you trying to solve?" And then he felt, it was just insecurity about his role as a manager because of the flexible working. And he felt lost. So I had to train him to say, okay, we have to go. Your job is to make sure that, he gets his best results. And if that means that he comes into the office at 11, then you should be stimulating him with that. And so there is that transformation, and it is very, very. This is exactly where the alignment in the management, the top management teams should take place. And we are working on a really, really nice workshop on that. We work with management teams to create more of that, bring them more from the left to the right, and especially this larger. No, this is not the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. To look into to go from industrial into this more abundant mindset where we focus on results, ideas, creativity, flow, and co-creation. And I'm very excited actually to see companies move forward to that.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like we can make inroads around busting the myth of productivity, but I think leaders almost need to see it for themselves. They need to be guided through that process of stop driving people because you think that's what creates productivity. Step off and then start to look at your results, because even if there's one employee who uses that opportunity, that added freedom to go and do whatever they want to do and kind of not really work that hard, you can kind of manage that. But you shouldn't have an entire organizational policy around productivity for the 1% that you feel like might take advantage. The vast majority of people would run with that freedom and that empowerment, and they would do an amazing service to your business. And leaders need to experience that to really believe it, I think.
Yeah. It was very interesting, and it's something that we can, as always, talk about for hours, but we won't.
Of course.
So thank you, everybody who was here in the LinkedIn Live, and people that watched the replay. Please reach out to us with any other questions or ideas or comments. And we're always pretty approachable, and we're happy to keep the conversation going. Going as well. To join us next week, every time at 1 in the afternoon on Universal time, and we are seeing you then. Okay. Thank you,
Angelique. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.